Let's take a look at how to set up smart pricing. Now please keep in mind that the margins, markups, and cost ranges that we will be showing are only hypothetical and are not recommended or endorsed by our writer. You'll be responsible for determining the proper settings for your store based on your part cost, your store locations, your labor pricing, and other competitive factors. To begin with, you'll need to know what your current margin is. Let's go to Reporting, Sales Report, and we'll run the summary report for the past year. On the summary report, we can see the parts margin for the past year. In this case, it's about 57%. We'll keep that number in mind. Next, we'll go to the Configuration module, and we'll go to Configuration, Parts, and Set Pricing Method. In this example, we're going to set pricing to be linear pricing by supplier for outside purchases. The next step is to set up our linear pricing. We'll once again go to Configuration, Parts, and Default Outside Purchase Pricing. While we can set up as many different pricing structures as we need, we always have to have at least one default outside purchase pricing method. This will apply to all of your suppliers, and then you can go back and set specific methods for different suppliers as necessary. We'll need to set the cost ranges first. So this is the cost of your parts, and I'll set a cost range in this example from $0 to $1, from $1 to $5, and on and on. Once we've set the cost ranges, we now need to set up a markup for each of those ranges. In this case, I'll mark up from $0 to $1 5 times, from $1 to $5, I'll mark it up 4.5 times, and so on. As you set your markup, it'll also show what the margin will be for each of those cost ranges and what the markup percentage is. We can now do a sales analysis. Based on the last year's actual purchases of parts, we'll run an analysis that will do a what if based on the new settings we have. In this example, we can see what our cost ranges are, and I can actually see the amount of sales I've had of parts in each of those ranges. The next row shows my actual cost of the parts purchases for each of those ranges. Here I can see that the majority of my parts were purchased in the $10 to $20 range and the $20 to $50 range. Again, based on actual purchases and sales over the past year, I can see my margin in each of these cost ranges. I can see here where the margin started lower and went up, and then came back down as the part got more expensive. The next line shows me what percentage of my sales is in each of these cost ranges. And next, what the average part cost is in each of these ranges as well. And then finally, using the actual costs over the last year, it predicts what my margin would be if I'd actually used the settings that were shown back here. So in this instance, my margin would have increased substantially in this first category and right down the line. Overall, my margin would have gone up to 71% if I had actually used these cost ranges and these cost plus multipliers over the past year. What you'll need to determine is if this is realistic, the new settings that you just put in. In this case, we looked at our margin initially and it was 57%. Using these new markups, it would have gone to 71%. If we determine that's either too high or too low, we can go back and we can either reset our cost points, or maybe we need to reset what the markup is in each one of these categories. And you'll need to work with this a little bit until you get markups that are realistic for your marketplace and your shop. Once you've reset them, you can go back and run another analysis, and you can see the instant impact that that would have. Again, it's doing a what if over the last 12 months based on what your actual purchases were, and using the new markups, what your new margins would be. Once you've set that, the next step is to determine whether you want to round your part prices or not. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and round all of my part purchase to 99 cents. We can now do an example. In this case, if my part cost $15.50, when I hit calculate, Smart Pricing will show me what that part would sell for. So it's going to mark it up, and then it'll round it. In this case, it'll take it to $52.99. If my part was between $20 and $50, in this instance, it would mark it up to $88.99. Once I'm comfortable with my cost ranges and my markups, I'll go ahead and save the changes. Now I can create additional pricing models for specific suppliers. For example, I'm going to create a matrix for my tire suppliers. I'll go to Suppliers, and I'll locate my tire suppliers, and I'll add them to this matrix. Once I've added all of my tire suppliers to this matrix, I'll once again go back and set my cost points. Now I don't have to use all the cost points. In this example, for tires that cost from $0 to $100, I'm going to mark them up 1.4 times. And for tires that cost from $100 up to the highest number I can imagine, $5,000 for example, I'm going to mark those up 1.3 times. Since I won't be purchasing any tires above this cost point, I don't need to use these additional cost points, as this will cover all the tires that I'd be purchasing. Once I've established this pricing for my tire suppliers, I can go back and I can set up additional linear pricing for my other suppliers as needed. One final step is I'll need to set my minimum margin. Now this minimum margin will apply to all suppliers, all cost ranges, and all linear pricing models. So for example, if I never want to sell a part for less than 40%, I'll put that in, and that'll be my margin warning as I produce my repair orders. I can now click OK, and my linear pricing is set.